Om Makyantimidandasya Jnananjanachalakaya Chakshurun Militham Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Vanchakalpatharubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patithanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Kopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Deve Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratvishe Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. It is my great honor and pleasure to be with all of you. My special gratitude to Swamiji's and to all of you. Earlier this afternoon, I was speaking with our beloved Shankarji, and he asked about a particular story that I'd like to share with you. It illustrates how Sri Caitanya, known as Gauranga, in his younger years and throughout his pastimes or his life, although so divinely empowered, being Bhagavan or God himself, was so respectful and kind in every way. When he was only about 11 years old, he went to a particular school. His teacher was Gangadas Pandit, who was a student of the greatest scholar of the day, named Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He excelled in his studies in such an incredible, inconceivable way. Although he was very young, most of the students in that school were 20, 25, 30. And the topmost of the students, his name was Raghunath. He was directly a disciple or a student of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he was a favorite. And he was petitioned to write a book on one of the 6 systems of philosophy called Nyaya. He spent years writing this book, and he had completed it. He was so proud of it. He wanted this book to be the standard for study of Nyaya for centuries to come. And he was sure it would be, because there was nothing else comparable to it. He put his heart and soul into it. One day he was riding on a boat across the river Ganga to school from where they lived with Nimai Gauranga. And he was telling him about this book. And Sri Gauranga told him, I have also written a book on Nyaya. Raghunath said, really? I'd like to hear it. He said, tomorrow I'll get it at home, and on our way to school I will recite it to you. So the next day, Nimai had the book that he had written and started reading it. Now in those days there weren't motorboats. You rode. And the Ganga is very wide in Navadvip, so it took a long time. Raghunath was in rapt attention listening to this. As he was listening, page after page after page, his heart was crushed. He began to cry. And Lord Gauranga looked at him and said, why are you crying? He said, it's very difficult to tell you why. He said, just tell me, we are friends. Now understand, he was much younger than Raghunath, but they were best of friends. Everyone was a best of friend of Lord Gauranga. He said, because I wanted my book to be the standard of Nyaya education for centuries to come. But after hearing your comprehensive explanation, no one will care anything for my book. Your book is so far superior. Gauranga started to cry also and put his arm around Raghunath's neck. And he said, if my book is a disturbance to you, then why should I be concerned? After all, Nyaya logic is dealing with this relative world. If it is you that wants the fame and the greatness, let it be. And with one arm around his friend, with the other hand, he threw the book in the Ganga. And please know, in those days, there weren't like computer copies of things. That was the only copy in the universe. And he never pursued to write it again. An example. And would you know, even to this day, Raghunath's book of Nyaya, 500 years later in Indian studies, is considered the standard. And thousands, tens and thousands of people still read it. He was empowered. Gauravani explained this beautiful verse. Amani na manadena. To offer all respect to others, not to demand respect for ourselves. The more we demand or expect, the more we suffer. Because the nature of the world is you don't get what you want all the time. If we expect it, we suffer. We're disappointed. We're frustrated. But if we don't expect, if we're happy to give, to serve, then nothing could really frustrate us or make us depressed. It's this expectation mentality, this sense of entitlement that causes so much inner frustration. You see, real humility is not a weakness. It's the greatest strength. Doesn't mean we're cowardly. Real humility is having infinite pride in the absolute, in the supreme. And that's where our joy comes from. And that we don't have to prove ourselves to do anything. We just do our very best. And if it is with a sincere heart, it is perfect. I would like to share a story. One of my, it's hard to use the word favorites. That's kind of like a modern word, but it's a story that ever since I first heard it, deeply moved and transformed my heart and the way I look at the world. But before I can tell this story and for you to have a proper comprehension of it, I will have to first explain some of the basic tenets within the teachings of Bhakti or Vaishnavism. When we understand from a Bhakti perspective what is the absolute truth, then we can appreciate these stories. The Srimad Bhagavatam, in the second chapter of the first canto, there's a very powerful verse. Vadanti tat tat vividas tattvam yajganamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. That deeply learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth, they understand this advayam, this supreme non-dual, as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The Srimad Bhagavatam, which is very much the standard of so many of the great acharyas of the Bhakti school, explains that the one absolute truth is seen from three different perspectives. And it explains there that students of various different schools are very, very inclined to fight about it, argue about it. Those who are in the line of study of the Upanishads, their ultimate goal of life is Brahman. Brahman is the supreme, all-pervading, formless, impersonal absolute. Those who are in the Hiranyagarbha school of yoga, their goal is to connect with the Paramatma, that same one truth who is seated within the heart of every living being. And those in the school who follow the school of bhakti or devotion, their ultimate goal is Bhagavan, the supreme personality of Godhead. And this verse explains something very interesting. It really moved my heart because, to be very honest with you, I studied under so many different teachers, and I adored each and every one of them. And I was reading the writings of great acharyas of past centuries. Many of them have influenced over hundreds and hundreds of years, tens and millions of followers, incredible scholars, unbelievable enlightened saints. And there seemed to be such a fundamental contradiction. Some of my teachers were teaching that the absolute truth is the formless, all-pervading, impersonal Brahman. And that's the only existence beyond the relative sphere of illusion. And that Brahman can enter into this material existence and take the form of pure goodness to have form and personality. But beyond that is simply the one, And then I had other teachers. And they had their shastras. And they had their paramparas. And they were explaining that ultimately the absolute truth is a person. The Brahma Samhita writes, which is one of the greatest of the Vedic literatures, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. That means this Param Ishvara. There are many Ishwaras. We're all little Ishwaras. At least we think we are. Ishvara means a controller, an enjoyer, a proprietor. But there is a Paramishwar, Krishna, and his form, his personality are Satchit Ananda Vigraha. They are eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. The Katha Upanishad explains Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman. That there is one supreme eternal and there are infinite subordinate eternals. So you see there's different perspectives. So which one is right? And I met so many people who just told me, they're all right, it's all right. But without a philosophical basis, it's really a sentimental thing to just say, okay, it's all right, everybody's right. Everybody's right, nobody's wrong. But it seems like everybody's wrong if you're going to do that. Because some of the Vedas are explaining within the Brahman, the spiritual sky, there are innumerable Vaikunthas. Vaikunthas are spiritual planets which are ever existing. They're beyond, they're in the Paravyoma, beyond the Prakriti, beyond the relative world of dualities and birth and death. And within those Vaikunthas, the Lord, Bhagavan, is eternally existing as an all-attractive person who's unlimited. Some say that if the Lord has form, that limits the Lord. That's one argument I heard. But then I hear the Bhaktas say, if you say he doesn't have form eternally, that's also limiting him. Because we have form, so why can't the Lord have form in the eternal realm? And some are quoting scriptures describing this supreme all-pervading oneness, and other explaining within that supreme all-pervading oneness there are eternal, beautiful abodes where the Lord is engaging in lila, eternal pastimes of love. Has eyes, but those eyes see everything everywhere. Has ears, but hears everything everywhere. Unlimited, inconceivable, unimaginable. But this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam just put everything in a perspective for me where, yes, there's not a contradiction. The absolute truth is unlimited. That Advayam, that non-dual, absolute, supreme, eternally has these three different not manifestations, but these three different existences. For those who strive through their yoga or through their spiritual practice for the unlimited peace in the oneness of Brahman, then mukti is the liberation. And for those who strive for eternal service with intimate, ecstatic love, then that is an eternal reality in which the Lord facilitates. And those who connect with the Paramatma can achieve incredible opulences within this world as well. Great acharyas like Shankar are teaching Brahman. And then Ramanuja, Madhva, Vallabha, Caitanya, and all of their great scholars, and they have written tens and thousands of books between these sampradayas, and they're explaining the eternality of Bhagavan. So with this conception, rather than just sentimentally ignoring the apparent and obvious differences, and rather than just fighting about who's right, we can understand that the absolute truth is infinite, unlimited, inconceivable, and has yeyatamam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmano vartante manushya parartha sarvasha. Krishna tells in Gita, as you surrender unto me, I reveal myself accordingly. We could merge into the all-pervading peace of the oneness of all existence, or we could have an intimate, loving relationship for all eternity with that one absolute truth who has beautiful form like Krishna or Ram. So in order to understand these beautiful pastimes in the school of Bhakti, it's important to know that these incredibly enlightened, pure-hearted, saintly people, their highest aspiration is prem. And in the school of Vaishnavism, that prem is in eternal service, where there is forever the lover and the beloved. Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam. Where we are eternal, the Lord is eternal, and there is loving relationship. So, Lord Gauranga, when he was living in Navadvip, after he returned from his initiation, he established the Sankirtan movement of the chanting of the holy names as a simple process by which anyone can attain the perfection of prem. And interestingly, in the Bhakti Shastras, prem and mukti are interchangeable words. Because there's Brahman mukti, which is the mukti of the supreme peace of Brahman, and there's prema mukti, the eternal liberation of intimate love, interaction, relationship, beyond Maya. So Lord Caitanya was giving this freely. We saw last night little Revati. She's 7 years old. You are 7, Revati? When will you become 8? June 24th. We'll all be wishing you happy birthday on that day. But we see a little 7-year-old girl, how enthusiastic, just to sing. People like to sing. It's so simple and so fun. And in the age of Kali Yuga, people need something very simple, at least most people. So at the house of Srivas, very, very holy place, Sri Chaitanya would perform kirtan all day long. One day with his devotees, they were, some of them had jobs and they worked, but they would come and they would chant. One day, Gauranga said, "We are chanting throughout the day, but we are wasting the nights sleeping. Time is so precious. In this human life, atato brahma jigyasa, the human life affords us the opportunity to understand what is the supreme goal, who is the absolute truth, what is real happiness, the cessation of suffering. This is all there for us as human beings." I remember years ago I was sitting with Swami Chidananda Saraswati, a beloved godbrother of His Holiness Sri Vishnu Devananda Swami Ji Maharaj, and a very prominent disciple of Swami Sivananda. And he was telling just a small group of people, I happened to be there. He said, we're doing our meditation. He said, we're doing our japa or our meditation in the morning, and then we spend the whole day in pursuit of trivial things. We gossip, we criticize, we get all bewildered by all these little things, and in this way, we lose the connection we make in the morning during our meditation and our sadhana. We shouldn't waste time. This is a primary virtue of human intelligence, to not waste time. So Lord Caitanya said, from this day on, we will chant all night long, every night, for 1 year. Now, if someone told you that, you would probably think, all night? I work all day. If I'm not working, I'm doing kirtan all day, and he wants all night for 1 year. When he said that, everyone raised their arms and said, Haribol. They were happy. Because he was so enthusiastic, he empowered them with the faith and the ability to do it. And for the next year, they chanted all day and all night. And usually, Gauranga, he took the role of a devotee to teach how to be a devotee. But something that is so historical within our Gaudiya tradition took place, the Mahaprakash Leela, where he revealed his divinity to different devotees according to their love for him, according to their realizations. And he was bestowing benedictions, fulfilling the desires of everyone. There was one doctor, he was an Ayurvedic doctor named Murari Gupta. And according to Gaudiya Vaishnava literature, he was an incarnation of Hanuman. So he called Murari, and he said, Murari, just see. And Murari looked up and he saw that Lord Gauranga had manifested the form of Lord Ram with a beautiful darkish complexion, holding a bow and a quiver of arrows. And on one side of him was Sita, on another side of him was Lakshman. And Murari was looking at him. Murari was a married man. He was looking up with such love. And then he happened to look down and he saw that he had a tail. And he fainted. And the Lord called, Murari, get up, see, I am your worshipful Lord, Sri Ram. And look, on one side of me is Sita. Don't you remember how you wept a shoreless ocean of tears, seeing her anxiety in the Ashokvan in Sri Lanka? And don't you remember how you jumped over the ocean 800 miles just to give her my loving message? And on this side is Lakshman. Don't you remember, Murari? You picked up an entire mountain to save his life and threw through the air for hundreds of miles with it. I am your beloved Ram, and you don't remember, but you are my Hanuman. I want to grant you any benediction you wish. Now this is where the mood of bhakti comes in. He said, I don't want anything of you. But the Lord said, but I insist. I want to give you something. He said, if you insist, my Lord, just give me this benediction. Wherever I may be, in whatever birth I may take, let me always be in the association of those who love you. And let me always remember you as your eternal loving servant. The great Bhakti saint Tukaram said something similar. He prayed, let me be an insect in the house of your devotee. So when your devotee takes a bath, when the water washes his feet, I could drink it, and I could bathe in it, and I could swim in it. That's all I want. This is the spirit of a devotee. The Lord said, Murari Gupta appears to be an ordinary family man and a doctor, but Murari, the Supreme Bhagavan, is always Gupta secretly in his heart, and he's seeing him and tasting his love always. Then the Lord really surprised someone. He said, bring Sridhar. They asked, who is Sridhar? He said, bring Sridhar. But we don't know any Sridhar. He said, he's my beloved devotee. He's so humble and he's so poor that nobody knows the treasures that are within his heart. If you go to the outskirts of Navadvip, to the precincts of Simantidvip, he said, just because it was in the middle of the night when this was going on, he said, just listen for someone loudly chanting God's names. That will be Sridhar. Just follow the sound and bring him here. Now I have to tell some stories of Sridhar that took place many years before this event. If you remember, we were describing how before he went to meet his guru in Gaya, he was hiding his supremacy. And he was appearing like a very, very wonderful scholar, Nimai. And he also did a lot of mischief as a young boy. And one of the things he would do is every day he would go to the little house of Sridhar. Sridhar was so poor. He was practically starving. He was so poor. And he made his living by selling banana leaves. Now, for you who have been to Bengal, there are bananas everywhere. You could just walk down any road and rip off a banana leaf or just grab a banana. Yes? He would just have a few little banana trees and he would sell the leaves. He would sell the flowers. If there were any bananas, he would sell the bananas. And he, according to the scripture, he was as honest as Maharaj Yudhisthira. He was in such a mood of concern with other people that he would charge the least possible he could live with. How many businessmen do you know who have that system? He would literally tax his brain to come up with the lowest possible price so that no one would be inconvenienced. And whatever little money he had, he would take half of it and use it to worship Mother Ganga. Because Mother Ganga is descending from the Lord's lotus feet. It's emanating from the divine head of Lord Shankar. It's pure. Lord Gauranga used to say the Ganga is so pure that anyone who sees it, bathes in it, drinks it, or even is touched by the wind that is coming from it, will be freed of accumulated sins, and divine love will awaken in their heart. So knowing this, he would take half of his income to do pujas to the Lord through Mother Ganga. And whatever little he had left, he lived. Nimai, he would come over to him every day. He said, how much are these bananas? Or how much are these banana leaves? And Sridhar would quote, lowest possible price. It was a survival price. Nimai said, too much, you are cheating me. I will give you half. He said, sir, Nimai was a young boy, 12, 13 years old. Sridhar was an elderly man. He said, my son, you're a Brahmin. You should be happy with this. I have to survive. He said, it's too much. I give you half. He said, well, why don't you go buy your banana leaves from someone else? Nimai would say, I know a good supplier when I see one, and I will never give one up. And they would argue over the price of bananas. And then Nimai would say, okay, I will just take them for free. And Sridhar said, no, you can't just take them for free. He said, oh, you are not giving them? He said, all right, you take them, you take them. Every day, Nimai would argue over the price of banana leaves for 2 hours with Sridhar. And he just was selling them on a dusty little path. And Sridhar was a pure devotee of the Lord. He was a true bhakta. And he didn't know that Nimai is Krishna. But somehow or other, he loved him so much. In the morning, he would just be looking down the road. When will Nimai come? When will he come? When will he come? And if he wasn't coming on time, his vipralamba, there was this intense separation of love. And when Nimai would come, oh, he's here. And then Nimai would say, how much bananas? He would tell him, I will give you half. And they'd argue, and then Nimai would take them. One day Nimai said to him, Sridhar, you're so poor. You're a devotee of Krishna. What is Krishna doing for you? Look there are atheists and agnostics and all kinds of other people who have nice houses and they have good clothes and they're eating good foods. And look at you. Your clothes are so old, he couldn't even afford a needle and thread. That's how poor he was. After wearing the same set of clothes for years and years, when rips and holes went in them, what he would do is he would very carefully tie a knot on the two sides of the tear and to put it together. And Lord Gauranga said, look, I see at least 11 or 13 knots in your clothes. And your body is so thin. And look at your house. The walls are made out of straw. The roof is made out of straw. And I see big parts of the roof where there's no straw. It's just holes. And what about the rainy season? It all comes in and you have one little old black dented pot that you put to catch the water. What is Krishna doing for you? Sridhar smiled. He said, I have come to understand in my life that there is the king who lives in a beautiful palace with silken clothes and fine jewels, magnificent throne, eating the finest foods. And then there's the bird. The bird just collects straw and grass and makes a little nest and just, eats whatever little berries he could find. And his clothes, he wears the same old feathers every day. But as far as I could see, the king and the bird are passing their life essentially in the same way. They're looking for pleasure. They're trying to avoid pain. They get some pleasure. They get some pain. Really, what's the difference? Sridhar said, I don't need anything. I'm happy simply chanting God, Krishna's names and doing seva, doing service. What else do I need? And Nimai said, you are a cheater. Sridhar said, maybe I'm a cheater, but why? He says, because you are such a wealthy person, but you are hiding your great treasure of wealth from the world. But someday I am going to expose you. Sridhar said, actually, Nimai, whatever you see is what it is. This is my house, this is my clothes, this is who I am. I don't have anything hidden. He says, no, you are hiding something. A great treasure. And Nimai, every single day, he was just a boy. His mother, Sachi Devi, would cook for him. He would only eat her food if she served it on a leaf that was given by Sridhar. And every now and then, a pumpkin or a squash would grow wild on the roof of Sridhar. And he would immediately bring it to Sachi to cook for Nimai. He didn't know who he was, but he loved him. Sometime later, Nimai returned from Gaya, and he was associating with the greatest saints. And Sridhar understood that actually, he's my Krishna. I didn't recognize him. He's my Krishna. But Sridhar was so simple and so pure, he never approached the Lord. Some years went by. He was just too shy, and therefore not a single devotee knew who he was. The very, very materialistic people, some of them really didn't like him, because he would spend the whole night chanting Krishna's names, the names of Hari. And sometimes it would wake them up. And they'd scream at him, "You hypocrite, you nonsense person. You're imitating a saint by chanting, but we know who you are and what you're doing. You're so useless. You're so poverty-stricken. Because there are pangs of hunger in your stomach all night, you're screaming out these names of Hari. It's not a matter of love, it's simply desperation." And they'd pick up a vegetable and throw it in his head and say, "Just eat this and shut up." And Sridhar would just offer pranams and go on chanting. He wasn't concerned with honor or dishonor. He was just concerned with bhakti, unmotivated, simple love. There's a beautiful verse in Bhagavad Gita. Patram pushpam palam toyam yomi bhakta prayachchati. Krishna is explaining the nature of bhakti. If you offer me even a leaf, a fruit, a flower, or some water with devotion, I will accept it. And the great Vedic scriptures that prioritize bhakti explain that the nature of the absolute truth is that the Lord willingly is conquered by the love of a devotee. So they went to Sridhar's house in the middle of the night and said, Gauranga is calling for you. He was so simple, so humble, so shy, he wouldn't even approach him. Years went by, he never came back to get his bananas. He fainted. My Gauranga is calling for me? And they picked him up, and they carried him all the way back. And they put him before Lord Gauranga. And he looked up and saw his beloved, that beautiful, beautiful golden complexion. And the Lord said, Sridhar, all these years I have been taking and taking and taking from you. Now I want to give to you. It is the nature of my relationship with my devotee that whatever is mine is yours, and whatever is yours is mine. This is an aspect of oneness, oneness of hearts, where the heart of the Lord and the heart of a devotee merge in ecstatic, selfless love for each other. And then Nimai manifested the form of Krishna. And Sridhar looked, and tears were pouring from his eyes. His heart was overflooding with Ananda. Lord Caitanya was standing with a beautiful bluish form like a monsoon rain cloud. We could go out tomorrow morning and see those. And he was wearing a beautiful cloth around his shoulders and around his waist, which was bright like lightning. He had wonderful lotus-like eyes. He was standing in a threefold bending form, and he was playing a flute, the essence of beauty. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains all that is incredibly opulent and wondrous and attractive in this whole creation. It is all but a tiny spark of my splendor. A little insignificant, infinitesimal, perverted, reflected manifestation of the Lord's opulence can completely mesmerize a person. One time, my Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada, was walking along the seashore. And it was in California. And there, the sun was setting. It was a beautiful sunset. And some of the devotees said, Srila Prabhupada, isn't it a beautiful sunset? And Srila Prabhupada said, if you think the art is beautiful, you should see the artist. This is just a glimpse. This is just a little flash of the infinite, inconceivable, unlimited beauty of the Lord. This is Bhagavan. Bhagavan is that source of infinite, unlimited attraction. According to Parasara Muni in the Vishnu Purana, it is described, Aishwaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashashashraya jnana vairagyayaschaiva sanambhaga itangana. Which means, what is the definition of Bhagavan according to Parasara Muni, the father of Vedavyas? One who possesses unlimited, eternal, infinite beauty, knowledge, strength, wealth, fame, and renunciation, humility, who is the source of all of those qualities to infinite degrees forever. That is Bhagavan. So Krishna, that supremely sweet form, was playing his flute for Sridhar. And then the Lord said to Sridhar, you have given everything to me. Now I want to give to you. You may ask for anything. Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. I am the supreme proprietor of all that exists. Ask for anything. Sridhar put his head down and then looked up and spoke from such a sincere place in his heart. He said, my Lord, I don't want anything. Gauranga said, you are in total poverty. There's no one poorer than you. I will give you an empire. I will give you an entire kingdom with all wealth and treasures. Sridhar said, I have no interest in any of those things. He said, I'll give you elevation to heavenly planets where you can have incredible prosperity. You don't have to suffer anymore. Sridhar said, all that stuff will just be a disturbance to me. I'm happy just being the servant of your servant and chanting your names. The Lord said, then I will give you the 8 mystic perfections, anima, lagima, prapti, where you could perform any miracle. Yogis, for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes, they perform tapasya or austerities for a mere glimmer of even one mystic power. I will give you all the cities to an incredible degree where you could perform any miracle. Just ask, I will give you now. Sridhar said, mystic cities, they are just a disturbance to my mind. I don't want it. The Lord said, ask for something. He said, I don't want anything. Just seeing you and serving you is enough. He said, I will give you mukti. I will give you cessation from suffering for the rest of eternity. Liberation. Ultimate goal. Just ask. I will give it now. I am Muktinath. I'm the Lord of Mukti. Take it. Sridhar said, I have no interest in Mukti. Then I will give you the perfection of Bhakti. I will give you elevation to Vaikuntha, to Goloka Vrindavan, to Krishna's eternal abode in the spiritual sky. Lord Caitanya taught that beyond this material creation, there is the Brahman, the eternal effulgence, the spiritual sky, the absolute non-dual oneness. And within that is the abodes of the Lord. I will give you elevation to my abode, to be my eternal loving associate, Sridhar. Just ask. Sridhar said, I don't want that. How many of you would refuse such things? I'll end now because I'm getting almost over. The Lord said, please ask for something. Sridhar said, my Lord, please be happy. I don't want anything. He said, I am happy, but I want to give you something. I know you don't want anything, but for my sake, to give me pleasure, ask for something. And this poor little banana seller, Sridhar, he said, if it makes you happy, there's only one benediction I wish. As little Nimai, please always come to steal my bananas. And my beloved, while you're stealing my bananas, please steal my whole heart. accept my heart as an offering of love to you. And in the core of my heart, let me forever see that little mischievous Nimai coming to steal my banana leaves. That's all I ask for. When he said that, Lord Gauranga cried. He said, Sridhar, offer me prayers. Beautiful prayers, I will summarize them. He said, my Lord, I'm illiterate. I don't know how to say prayers. He said, I will give you the power to express whatever's in your heart. Just open your mouth and start speaking. He said, you are my beloved Krishna, the Lord of my heart, the Lord of my life. And you have descended to act like an ordinary person here in Navadvip. But you have come here through this kirtan, chanting of these mantras. You have come to spread your love. And the nature of this love is you willingly become conquered by that love. And he gave beautiful examples from the scriptures. Bhishma, during the Mahabharata war, Krishna made a promise he would not lift a weapon. But Bhishma was shooting, he was about to kill Arjuna, and Krishna picked up a chariot wheel and attacked him. He said, by doing this, Bhishma defeated you by making you break your promise. And he said, and Yashoda, your mother in Vrindavan, she tied you up with a rope. And you allowed her to do so just to show it is your greatest pleasure to be bound, to be conquered by the love of your devotee. The all-conquerable, Ajita, Ajuta. Just for the sake of loving Ras, which we will be describing in the course of our discussions. And Sridama, a little cowherd boy, you would wrestle with him and he would defeat you and you would carry him on your shoulders just to show everyone that I have been defeated by the love of my devotee. My Lord, it is only by your grace that you give this prema, this love. And then it is by your grace that you're conquered by this love. My Lord, I have no love. This is what Sridhar said, I have no love. But wherever you want to put me, let that little Nimai always be. Let me see this beautiful pastime within my heart, where you come to steal my heart. When he said this, the Lord was crying. He said, Sridhar, I grant you the benediction of Shuddha Bhakti, Prema Bhakti, the ultimate ecstasy of love forever. And upon hearing that, all the devotees who were assembled, they raised their arms in great joy. Because to see someone getting the grace of the Lord is the greatest pleasure for one who has a compassionate heart. Thank you very, very much. We will continue tomorrow.